All right, it's officially week 21 of CardVault by Tom Brady vlogs. 21 weeks ago, so now 20 total weeks of content, we have brought you guys in to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look at this crazy ride and journey that we've been on since Tom came on this ride with us. And we wanted to give our customers, our followers, our friends, our family, that behind the scenes look of this crazy world that we've built and how we're building it, how we're opening stores, what's going on a day-to-day basis here at the office, day in the lives of our team members and our breaks team and everything in between. From setting up new stores, getting prepped for new stores, opening up a warehouse, the grand opening events that we've been hosting, and shout out to Joey and Robin and Brian and everybody on our content team that have helped pull this together and make this happen. Shout out to Austin and Ben, who have also helped kind of from a strategy perspective and thinking up ideas. And 21 weeks ago, Joey, and it's been a fun ride. And I think this is going to be a really cool episode for us, not only to look back and take a look at how far we've come, but also kind of give us some perspective on where we want to go with this content to keep it creative and keep it unique and obviously continue to give you guys a look into our world that you guys find value in. So with that said, for week 21, we're going to look back at our first 20 weeks of YouTube content here on the CardVault by Tom Brady channel. So let's take a look. I mean, we have to look at the first ever vlog, right? Week 1. East Hampton. So ironically, we started this series, or at least this vlog concept, after we had already opened American Dream. So American Dream, we put on this huge grand opening event with 10,000 people, and we had Tom on stage and throwing footballs into the crowd. And I think that's where it dawned on us, hey, this is something not just special, but unique and interesting. And we should really think about taking people behind the scenes on what it takes to put these things together, not just get the stores ready, but also put on these amazing grand opening events with Tom and friends of CardVault. So that's where episode 1 starts. Joey and I jumped in the car and drove down to East Hampton, and we captured kind of the few days leading up to our grand opening. And episode 1 was really about how do we prep the store? How do we get the store ready? How do we merchandise the store? How do we get the staff ready? A lot of you have gotten to know Smitty over the last 5-6 weeks, and you've started to maybe get to know Frank, even though Frank hates to be on camera.
How you doing, buddy? You good? He goes, leave me the f*** alone and get that camera out of my face.
You certainly have got to know Jesse, who kind of oversees our inventory and our processes and setting stores up alongside Frank. I mean, episode 2 was, Tom coming to East Hampton and shutting down the street, and we had the football team there, and we had thousands of people show up and really got to treat that as more of a community event than, what American Dream was, which was just kind of this massive production. And I'm very, very happy with not just the event, but the vlog, because I think the vlog did a great job. And I think Joey and the team did a great job of breaking down what really goes into those. So yeah, week 1 and 2, East Hampton. Those are some good memories for sure. Even though the pep talks that I give to our team, our new staff at these locations, Smitty and Frank and Jesse and the team have taken those pep talks and started to turn them into a laughing stock, which I don't love. I'm kidding, but not kidding. They make fun of me. Anyways. All right, so we went on to episode 3 and 4 and kind of brought everybody behind the scenes here at the office. We're obviously super proud of this space and the spaces that we've created for our teams. And then in episode 4, we brought you guys behind the scenes and setting up our first actual warehouse. Up until that point, inventory was managed across our existing locations, which was really challenging. And that was a really, really important day, a really, really important episode, because I think twofold. It shows you guys a lot of behind the scenes on how we're thinking about growing this thing and what's important to us for growth, meaning how do we manage our inventory effectively? How do we scale our inventory? How do we give our teams an easier job on a day-to-day basis managing that inventory? It also kind of brought you behind the scenes and helped kind of introduce you guys to some new characters on the squad. And I also think it shows you some of the challenges that we face on a daily basis. That's why I think, episode 4 is so important. You see what it takes to build a warehouse, what it takes to stock a warehouse, what it takes to manage a warehouse, and then you get to see who's kind of behind the scenes and driving it. So yeah, episode 4 was I think an important one. All right, episode 5 deserves its own little discussion here. I think we knew, as most people in this space that are making content knew, Fanatics Fest was going to be a focal point. It was going to be its own episode. It was going to be its own large episode. We knew that we, not only from a business perspective and from an operations perspective, were leaning into Fanatics Fest and making a big deal out of Fanatics Fest and bringing the whole team and bringing an amazing setup, and having Tom on site was a huge part of that. What we didn't know was what was going to unfold throughout those 3-4 days. And it was pretty incredible. We had Tom at the booth with hundreds and hundreds of people mobbing our booth. We had our vault built before the show and our entire setup built before the show, which was a huge task from our construction team and Joe and Tyler and the whole squad, some of which you saw. And then we had our entire team on site. We had to build roles and responsibilities for everybody on site. And then all the things that happen outside of the show. Team dinners, which we tried to bring you guys into, and Tom shows up, and that's where all bets are off. Not only does Tom show up, and then Wahlberg shows up, and the place just goes insane. So now you've got Tom and Mark Wahlberg at our booth at Fanatics Fest with a sea of people trying to get closer and closer. It actually got scary at one point. Tom threw a football into the crowd and somebody dove as if they were in the national championship game and dove headfirst into our TV at the booth and knocked the TV off the wall and cracked the TV in half. I think we maybe captured that, but I don't think we got the full thing on camera. And then, I was hosting events between the Breaker Arena with Maddie, where we had Tom with us, and then we hosted the athlete immersion program in the Breaker Arena with 18 different athletes that were opening cards simultaneously. That was intense. I hosted the Fanatics VIP and family and friends event. Tom showed up for that, but that's always a really, really cool event. We've done that now 2 years in a row. Last year we did it with Cooper Flagg and Alex Earl, but yeah, this year was great. And we were opening Bowman Draft with Tom in the room trying to chase that elusive Brady inscription. So we went from that event, and then we went to host a panel, and it was me, Logan Paul, Emma Roberts, and then Tom. And because Tom's schedule's so insane, maybe you guys didn't see this behind the scenes, but he was late to the panel, so we had to start without him. Logan, what you guys may not have seen during this episode, was Logan actually had to go to another event, and he said, no, I'm staying. So I'm there on stage, and the prompter is saying, get Logan off stage. And Logan looks at me, he goes, I'm not leaving. And I was like, all right. He goes, I'm waiting for Tom. He wanted to, shout out to Logan. He wanted to be there when Tom arrived, and it ended up being an amazing event. Logan, Emma Roberts, and Tom on stage together, me asking them questions, talking about their collecting, where they saw the hobby going. That was a really cool way to round out the show. And then all the deal content, which is actually sometimes our best content out of these things. You had Smitty and Trent walking around Fanatics Fest, wheeling and dealing with some of our closest friends. So Fanatics Fest, that was a good one. Yeah, so this is a really good stretch of content. So going from episode 5 to episode 6, there was a lot going on at this part of the year, right? We had Fanatics Fest. We built a 35 or 32-minute vlog on it. And then we immediately had a trip to our new Chicago location before Chicago was ready, and we were starting to map out the space. So Joey came with us on that trip. We filmed a press conference in front of Wrigley Field to announce Chicago once it was ready. And then we went from Chicago straight to Vegas for UFCX, which was an awesome trip in some ways and a horrible trip in others. I got my ass kicked in Las Vegas, but we'll get to that in a second. Fanatics and the UFC have always been amazing, and luckily asked me to be part of these pack battle events. We've done pack battles with Dana White and Michael Rubin. We've done 2 rounds of those, so 2 different events. And now this was kind of round 3, and we brought Dana and Steve Aoki together on stage at UFCX, and Steve actually took down Dana. Dana was undefeated at that time, but backstage, Nina Drama literally chokes me out, which, should have been considered foreshadowing, because I was about to go down a really dark path of torture and pain. So I get choked out by Nina Drama backstage. We then head to Steve Aoki's house in Vegas. That was one of the craziest nights of my life. It was us, Steve, Patty Pimblett, Molly Meatball, Marab, Nikki Rips was there, shout out Nikki. But within 5 minutes of me being there, I get choked out by Molly Meatball. So now I'm getting choked out twice in one day. And then we're jumping in Steve's foam pit, and I jump in. I get stuck. It was actually nerve-wracking. I actually thought I was permanently stuck in Steve's foam pit. It's the hardest thing to get out of. I don't know how people do it. As I'm trying to get out, Molly then jumps in and gives me a flying elbow. So actually in full-blown pain now. We go from the foam pit to Steve's kitchen, and we start ripping UFC cards. And that's when things got ugly. We We wagered that if we pulled, I don't know who. We'll go back and watch the tape. Somebody wagered, I think it was Randy, wagered that if we pulled a Patty Pimblett out of one of the packs, each Patty equaled 1 kick to me. So, of course, the first card out of the pack is a Patty Pimblett. So now I'm immediately know I'm getting kicked by Patty. We ended up pulling 2. We pulled 2 Patty Pimbletts. So now I'm sweating, I'm panicking. I take a kick to the leg. You guys will insert the footage here. I take a kick to the leg. It was absurdly painful. Like, I'm not exaggerating. It was absurdly painful. Caught me right on the IT band, right on the thigh. Because it didn't sound painful, the whole room's going, no, doesn't count. You still have 2 more. All right, I gather myself. I take a second kick to the leg. That was horrifying. I get up, catch my breath, and now I've got to go back to the other leg where I've already been kicked, and Patty puts one right on the same spot. I thought my life was over. I mean, like, nauseous pain. Like, so painful that I was nauseous. Pretty cool night at Steve's house, but also a very painful night, unfortunately. Thanks to Patty. But at least I beat him in ping pong. I did beat him. Like, I smoked him. Just saying. Patty, what's up? Hard not to shout out Kyle, king of the cards, our good friend Kyle Kravitz. We ended up making a vlog episode out of this. We didn't expect to, but it was worth it. He visited us here at the office. He had a local deal that he had been negotiating with a couple of guys locally here, so he flew in to get the deal done. He actually did the deal here in the conference room, and that ended up turning into a really cool episode, almost 10,000 views. So again, it's a brand new channel, so 10,000 views is pretty good. Okay, and then episodes 10 and 11, when we did the UFCX trip, before that we stopped in Chicago and we were mapping out the store. It was a blank box. But then once the store was ready, which our construction team, Joe, Tyler, and the whole squad, I mean, these things are getting done in like 2-3 weeks now. It's insane. But once the store is ready, we got to start prepping. We start prepping not just the store, and then we start prepping the logistics, and then we start planning for and executing a grand opening event. This one was really special. And if you remember back to the East Hampton episode, our first 2 vlogs, we took the same approach. It's an episode on how we prep the store, and then an episode on how we open the store. And this one we showed you guys prepping the store from here on the warehouse floor, and how we get inventory ready, and how Jesse and Frank and Smitty are getting ready to go to Chicago to get the store ready. And then the grand opening was really, really special. I think that was an eye-opening moment for me, as far as like kind of the path that we're on, the journey that we're on, how far we've come as a company, and obviously what Tom's brought to the table. And I mean the entire Chicago Cubs team walked into our store and hung out for 2 hours to support us opening our store. They ripped packs with us and Tom. I watched Tom and P. Crow Armstrong have a 25-minute conversation about taking care of yourself and investing in yourself and mindset of winning and mindset of being a leader. And I think it was really, really impressive to just kind of see, not only how many people showed up, and keep in mind, this is all during the week of the National in Chicago. So we're at Wrigley Field opening our new store with the Cubs and Tom and a bunch of our friends from the industry, all while the National is happening in Chicago. So the turnout was almost overwhelming, but even so, the Chicago Cubs showing up to your store and being excited to be there. Like I actually, that was maybe the biggest eye-opening part of it all to me was, you had Kyle Tucker and P. Crow Armstrong and Michael Bush and Matt Shaw and Matthew Boyd and Justin Turner. And every single one of these guys was stoked to be at that store and was stoked to be there with us. Justin Steele, who's a big-time collector, and he's been visiting the store ever since, before practice, after practice, before games, after games. That was a really, really special, not only night, but episode. I think that episode brought people in on kind of where we were actually headed, where this thing is going. And also, I think, gives them an idea of how much work our team is putting into making these things really special. It's not just Frank and Jesse and Smitty and me and AJ and Jack and Sid and Aldo. Like, yes, there's a lot going on there, but there's also a lot going on beyond that. There's our creative team getting all the assets ready. There's our marketing team making sure we're getting the word out there. There's our buying team to make sure that our stores are full. There's our HR team making sure that we are hiring and we're getting the right employees and enough employees at these locations. And then our content team is capturing it all. So yeah, Chicago, I think it was episode 10 and 11, was that was great. 18,000 views on the Chicago opening, Joey.
I was just gonna say that's our most viewed on the channel.
18,000. I mean, coming off of the Chicago opening, and sure enough, there comes our national vlog. I mean, the National's the National. There's so much going on at the National. There's so much to capture, and I think my favorite part is it's so hobby focused, right? But I think we did an amazing job at the National this year, not just from like an operations perspective, but from a content perspective. You know, we happen to set up in corporate. We're not allowed to do the stuff that we do as a business on a daily basis. We're not allowed to sell things. We're not allowed to trade. We're not allowed to do singles or wax. We're only allowed to market, right? So we built a museum. We brought our vault. We were in a great spot next to Tops, and we built a museum, a game used museum with a lot of Tom's most iconic items. So game used jerseys, the Dunking jumpsuit that he wore in the Dunkin' Donuts Super Bowl commercial that was already signed by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and we had Tom sign it at the booth when he came to visit. We had game used Super Bowl balls, game used Super Bowl wristbands and play calling sheets, which are always my favorite. We had game used helmets, Super Bowl helmets, and then we had my good friend who's become a good friend, Pat Ryan, the P. Ryan collection. He came by to the booth while Tom was there and unveiled his GOAT signatures piece, which he was able to complete. Tom was the first person to sign after Babe Ruth, of course. So Pat sourced a Babe Ruth autograph, a cut autograph on a piece of paper, and then his mission was to have Tom, Jordan, Messi, and Gretzky sign alongside Babe Ruth. That's kind of the team sport goats of team sports, right? I heard a lot of people commenting like, hey, where's Tiger? Hey, where's Serena? This was a team sport piece, but oh my God, what a piece. And he was able to finally complete it. He got it authenticated, and then he wanted Tom to be the first one to see it because Tom was the first one to start it after Babe. So that was a really, really cool moment. But I also think my favorite part of this vlog was the fact that we were able to pull off the National and opening a brand new store 40 minutes away. And I think that's one of the things that, if you go back and watch this episode, is most impressive, is if you're watching this National vlog and you see what we're able to accomplish at the National and the amount of effort and resources that we put into the National, while also knowing that we are prepping, planning, merchandising, training, staffing a brand new store at Wrigley at the same exact time, and then handling a grand opening event there while we're doing all the things we're doing at the National. I think that's really where, you know, it was eye-opening to me to say, like, okay, we're able to do anything. All right, this was a good one. Yeah, this one's cool too. I mean, we've done so many great episodes. So a lot of you know, our first store ever where we started was Gillette Stadium, CardVault Patriot Place. That's our first ever location. One of my favorite stores for obvious reasons. That's kind of where this whole thing began. Tom finally had a statue honoring him installed at the entrance of at the stadium. And as part of that ceremony, Tom was obviously coming to town. And we made plans for Tom to stop by the Patriot Place store before the statue unveiling. And then we all got to go with Tom and you know, sit with his friends and family and watch the statue being unveiled, which is, I mean, saying that out loud is actually insane. Like, so I grew up in New England, a diehard New England Patriots fan. I'm 36 years old, all 6 rings in New England. I was of age to be present and cheering, and I went to the first ever, you know, Pats parade after they won the Super Bowl in 2001. And to sit here and say, like, hey, I went with Tom Brady to his statue unveiling at Gillette Stadium and sat in his friends and family section is, I don't know, it's weird. I don't think I've taken enough time, because things have been moving so fast and so crazy, and we've been building this thing and so focused. I don't think I've like taken enough time. I mean, obviously I'm aware of how crazy this is, but I don't think I've taken enough time to realize like how nuts the whole story is. And I think this episode kind of brings that to life. And I don't even think I realized it once we posted it. I'm realizing it now that I'm talking about it. Wow. Yeah, so anyways, Tom stopped by our store, said hello to our customers, gave our customers an amazing moment, and then we all went to the statue unveiling with Tom. And you met Frankie and Jack, who ended up becoming part of a later episode. They came and ran the company for a day. But yeah, man, I went to Tom Brady's statue unveiling at Gillette Stadium with Tom Brady as his guest and business partner. Didn't have that on my bingo card when I was 16. All right, our breaks team. You know, Maddie, who runs the breaks team, you guys have heard early on him giving us a lot of flack about how the breaks team was overlooked. The breaks team was overshadowed. The breaks team was not covered enough. Well, he wasn't wrong. So we definitely made an effort over the last several, if not, 5-6 weeks to incorporate the breaks team into these vlogs, because they're a huge part. They're a huge part of what we do. It's actually the reason we do what we do. We started as breakers. At some point we've been talking about putting out like an an origin story documentary on just like kind of how this thing all started and became what it is. And in ways, this episode is part of that. It's, reflecting on this last chunk of time. But the story and how we get to this chunk of time is really fascinating and very much rooted in breaking. We started as big night breaks. And I would leave my job, and then as the pandemic developed, I would punch out for the day. I was selling software and had for many, many years. That was my gig. And I would finish for the day, and then I would pack a backpack and I would drive down to the office, and we'd start streaming 7, 8 o'clock at night, and we'd finish 1, 2 in the morning. And as that started to pick up and gain momentum, that's where we decided, hey, let's build a shop, and that's where CardVault was born. And then Big Night Breaks became CardVault Breaks. And so the Breaks team and Maddie and Tim and their entire squad and all of our breakers who are all super, super talented. I can't state how big a part of this that they are. I mean, they're arguably the biggest. They're not just part of our start, but they're a huge part of what we do on a daily basis. And so Maddie was not wrong. So next episode, we end up kind of bringing you behind the scenes with the entire Breaks team. And that's where you meet not just Maddie. I mean, you had seen Maddie leading up to this episode. That's where you meet Mr. Galley, who is a riot, a human cartoon character. You meet Luke. You meet Boomer, you meet Debo, who's, leading our soccer efforts. You meet Jamil, you meet Gus. All these guys are so critical to everything we're doing. Charlie, who's been, part of a lot of these episodes, but also on our Breaks team. So this episode I loved because I think it was needed to kind of bring you guys behind the scenes on that side of our business because it's such an important part of our business. And I also love it because those guys are meant to be on camera. That's what they do. So. All right. Our last episode as of this recording, our 20th episode was our Soho grand opening. Part of the reason why I thought this episode would be so important to reminisce is planting a flag in New York City, specifically Soho, is a big milestone. It's a big, for any retailer, for any business. When you open in New York City, that's usually a huge milestone. And this one certainly is. Soho I think it's an amazing store, and it's going to be a great store, and it's going to be a super important store for us, but it was more so the moment in time kind of solidifying and stamping all of the work that we had put in and, what it means to operate in New York City in one of the more iconic neighborhoods of the city. So we treated this very similar to how we treated East Hampton, how we treated Chicago, but, this one was a little bit special for that reason. New York City is New York City, and the reason I really loved this were a few things. Number one, Karl Anthony Towns showed up out of nowhere. We're out front. Tom is doing an interview with Fox 5 before we cut the ribbon out front of the Soho store, and Kat literally pulls up and walks over. It was literally quite that. It was a surprise. He just showed up. I thought that was super sick. And since then, we've been open now for a couple weeks, or not even a couple weeks, but Kat's been at the store a number of times. Kat's a real collector. He's buying singles, buying wax, ripping cards. So that's pretty cool. And it also was kind of a wake up to okay, this store is going to be a lot of that. It's going to be a lot of celebrities and athletes just showing up. I get a text the other day from our store manager, and Chris Rock walks into the store. Chris Rock shopping at CardVault by Tom Brady. And then Emma Roberts showed up at Soho yesterday. And Emma's, become a great customer of ours and a friend of ours and loves cards. And she's been shopping at our East Hampton store. She was there for part of the summer. She shows up at our Soho store to show some love. Shout out Emma, you're the best. But it's just, Soho, that's New York City. And this episode that night, it started with Kat surprising us all, which I thought was really, really amazing. And then, goes to Tom being able to spend time with a lot of our VIPs, friends and family. My mother shows up to the event. She was invited, don't worry. My mother shows up to the event, and I'll say this, you guys didn't catch it on camera, but off camera, Tom talked to my mom and said some pretty insane things, incredible things, which goes back to the surreal nature of the statue unveiling, for the same reasons. Tom Brady and not just being your partner, but then, finding it necessary to tell your mother how impressed he is and how excited he is and how amazing the team that we built is, and it's pretty special. So that was another really, really important part of that night in this episode for me was, not just being able to introduce my mom to Tom, but more so being able to introduce my mother to Tom and have Tom validate the amount of hard work that we as a team have put into this. She calls calls me the next day and she's just like at a loss for words. It's, you know, it's hard to explain how that works out. So, but then maybe my favorite part of the night, and maybe that's where we'll cap this off. I got Tom to sign a jersey, a really nice Mitchell and Ness jersey to FDNY. So our store in Soho is directly across the street from Division 1 of FDNY, which is a really, really not just iconic, but important firehouse in the city of New York City. It's one of the main firehouses. Division 1 is oftentimes referenced in a lot of 9/11 documentaries and 9/11 stories. They were some of the first on the scene. They lost a lot of firefighters on 9/11. So we're across the street from them, and those guys are amazing. And we got Tom to sign a jersey to FDNY. We walk across the street. The chief, the commissioner, and the entire battalion are hanging out ready for Tom, and he delivers the jersey to him. And you would think, like, hey, these are Jets and Giants fans. Like, they don't have time for Tom Brady. I mean, these guys were over the moon, thrilled to see Tom, and Tom was over the moon thrilled to see them, and we got to hang out for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and he's signing autographs, he's shaking hands, he's giving hugs, he's laughing. They're giving us merch, we're giving them merch, and then on the way out, Tom starts busting out pull-ups on their Rogue pull-up rack on the exit. So it was a really special moment. I mean, I think it goes to say who Tom is, who he's become in the world. I think he's transcended the New England Patriots, right? I think Tom Brady has become far beyond football even. To be able to see FDNY firefighters hugging Tom, taking pictures with Tom, shaking Tom's hand, asking him questions, asking for autographs, that was pretty surreal, pretty special. So New York City, Soho was amazing. But with that said, the whole thing's been amazing. I mean, 20 weeks of content, and to think the amount of things that we've captured in this 20-week window is like mind-bending to me. We've announced 6 more locations. There's going to be many, many more locations to be announced. We're going to take you behind the scenes at all of those. We've got Mall of America and Las Vegas and San Francisco and Palo Alto and maybe some more mixed in there. But yeah, 20 weeks, it's been fun. Maybe we should do more of this. We should reminisce. We should reminisce more often. Yeah, but anyways, this is episode 21. But yeah, until next time, thanks guys. Appreciate all you. Love you all. This has been crazy, and it's only been 20 weeks. Jesus. See you next week.